Good morning, everyone. The Bengal Chamber Economic and Social Research Council, ECRC, Glasgow University and IIM Calcutta welcoming you to its program Gendered Journeys. We are really thankful to you for participating to this program. Before we commence the program, we would like to request you to kindly rise up for 30 seconds to pay our respect to Mr. Shubhimal Bose, who was graduated from University of Glasgow in the year 1958 and who was the president of Glasgow All Student. I would request you to rise for 30 seconds and please maintain silence for 30 seconds. Thank you. Please take your seat. The Bengal Chamber, as I said, along with the Economic and Social Research Council, ECRC UK, Glasgow University and IIM Kolkata, today we are organizing this Gendered Journeys. This program, this is a thought-provoking seminar and workshop, and I should say that it's a kind of an interactive session where we would like to get your views, your thoughts. That is why we are calling it an interactive session on STEM education. And when we say gendered journeys, we are looking for, presence and participation of those who are, we call gendered minorities, their participation in higher education and also the scope in employment. Not only that, we would like to also hear your own experiences and the kind of challenges and also opportunities that you face. We would like to, that kind of interaction, so that after this interactive session, thought-provoking session, we can come out with a robust recommendation report. And as you know, we have policymakers here, we have practitioners here, we have students here, so that we can send a robust recommendation report to the policymakers and assist them to have a better policy which will help in participation of gendered minority in STEM education in future. And thank you once again. Now I announce the names with whom will commence the session. We are really happy that we have Dr. Dipankar Das, who is the Chief Scientific Officer, Department of Science, Technology and Biotechnology, Government of West Bengal. I would like to request who is the guest of honor today. I hope Dr. Das is here. I would like to request Dr. Das to please kindly come up to the stage. We have Dr. Barbara Reid from University of Glasgow and Professor Bonnie Slade from University of Glasgow, requesting both of you to kindly come up to the dais. We have Ms. Jane Umotoni from University of Rwanda. Request you to kindly come up to the dais. We have with us Professor Sravoni Moitro from University of Glasgow, Professor Dr. Sravoni Moitro. Dr. Moitro, please come up to the dais. We also have Dr. Shoikot Moitro and Professor Dr. Monish Kumar Thakur from Indian Institute of Management, Calcutta. So we will start the session with the theme address by Dr. Barbara Reid, University of Glasgow, and with Professor Bonnie Slade, if like their vision, their thought, and obviously their findings with, they will commence the session with their findings and with their thoughts. Thank you.
Okay, hello and thank you so much for coming to our event today. We really appreciate it. Before I start, I'm going to give a very brief introduction to the project and the topic of the project and why we're all here today. But first of all, I just wanted to do a few thank yous. So we would really like to thank so much Soma Mitra Mukherjee and colleagues at the Bengal Chamber. Thank you so much, and many apologies for my pronunciation. We would also really like to thank the colleagues, project team members at the Indian Institute of Management, Shrabani Mitra, Shaikat Mitra, and Manish Thakur. Thank you so much. And we would also really like to thank Sucharita Chattopadhyay, Kunal Chattopadhyay, and Somanil Dasupta at Jadavpur University, and everybody else who colleagues who have helped so much to make this happen today. We really love it, and our gorgeous banner here. Really appreciate it. Okay, so this event really builds on a 3-year international project, which has been the collaboration between 3 university teams. That's a team at the Indian Institute of Management, Calcutta, the University of Rwanda, and the University of Glasgow. And as I mentioned, I'm just going to very briefly tell you a very tiny bit about the project before passing on to rest of the colleagues to give you some more details about our findings so far. So this is the aim of the project. We are very much just looking to see how far and in what ways the practices and the cultures of both university settings and the workplace are in STEM, science, technology, engineering and mathematics, how these sectors are influenced by gender, and the implications of their gendering, their genderedness, for the student journeys into higher education, and really crucially, what happens afterwards, how far it is possible then for especially gender minorities in STEM sectors to move into skilled employment in STEM fields as well. And I'm sure most of you will know some of these issues that I'm just going to raise if you are already employed in this sector or have an interest in this area. But overall, across the globe, women are generally at parity as undergraduates with men in most areas in the world, apart from sub-Saharan Africa and also, if you take the region as a whole, Southern Asia. But in relation to STEM subjects, we have a much less happy, less rosy picture. We have in STEM subjects overall, it's particularly areas such as engineering and ICT that we find a very stark minority of women taking part. We have overall internationally is only 3% in these particular areas of STEM, and 5% in natural sciences and mathematics. Although, of course, this masks a huge amount of variation across different countries. So, for example, the Ivory Coast, the Côte d'Ivoire, has only 16% of students in natural sciences being women. But then if you go to a country like Bahrain, that it is 86% of students in studying the same subject are women. So we have to obviously acknowledge that there is a huge difference across different regions in the world. But one thing briefly we just wanted to say is that we are hoping to go beyond these very immediate gender figures and just looking at the numbers of men and the numbers of women that are enrolled in these subject areas. There are a few pitfalls if we just focus on these figures. And one issue is that we can fall into a trap where we see girls and women and boys and men as these two diametrically opposite, uncomplicated categories. And this, of course, can leave aside more complex issues, such as the variety of the ways in which people identify in relation to gender. But it also masks how much other similarities and differences people have apart from gender, and that other aspects of our identities and positionings, such as our ethnicity, nationality, sexuality, or socioeconomic background, can all make a huge difference in experience within a category of gender, and you might have more commonalities with others of other genders. So we wanted to complicate that issue here with our project, and we also wanted to really put the focus on the cultures and practices of universities themselves and in the workplace, rather than just focusing on, say, encouraging women into STEM. We wanted to maybe take a little bit more of a look at what we can do as practitioners or people working in the sector to try and make a difference to the wider cultures and practices which might have an influence. And I'm just going to finish up here very briefly, just to set the scene of what the methods were for the project. We started off just before the COVID pandemic, so we are still a little bit behind in our project, but we have some emerging findings now. And it's a combination of large-scale primary survey data that was collected with STEM students in all three countries in the project, UK, India, and Rwanda. And we've also done in-depth qualitative interviews, and that has been with STEM students and STEM employees. The condition of our grant meant that we couldn't do that qualitative research in the UK, but we have findings in India and Rwanda, which we are hoping to present to you in this as part of this session. So I will finish here now, but I just wanted to say thank you again for coming, and we would really would like to hear your ideas, your thoughts, and hear more of the discussion as we go along. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Barbara Reid. Thank you for the nice presentation. We are going through that, and it was really, really eye-opening. Now I request Professor Bonnie Slade. Would you like to add any comment? Do you have any observation, or like you will talk later?
I think I'd like to let the...
Okay, listen. Okay, I understand. Thank you. Okay. So now, like as Dr. Reid has mentioned, that this has been done in UK and Rwanda and India. So here are the key findings from Rwanda, and Ms. Jane Umutoni will be presenting the key findings from University of Rwanda. So please come.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having us here, and I'm very pleased to be here with you. These are initial findings from Rwanda. This is the team from Rwanda. It's myself, Jane Umutoni, as I was introduced. Then there's a colleague of mine, Josephine Malonza. Then there is Marie Chantal Churinyana and Jolie Rubagiza. The two last ones are on the advisory board, and then we are two co-investigators. Unfortunately, my colleague Josephine wasn't able to be here, so I'm representing Rwanda. For those of you who don't know much about Rwanda, probably there are some of you who know Rwanda. That is where it is located. It is a tiny little country in Africa, specifically in East Africa. I don't know if you can see the very tiny part next to the white map in the green part. That is Rwanda, and on the side that is the map of Rwanda, and those are the colors that make up the flag of Rwanda, and they are there for a reason, as you can see down there. Blue for happiness and peace, yellow for economic development, green for the hope for prosperity, and then the sunshine for enlightenment. So Rwanda, as I said, is a tiny country, and it is tiny, but it is densely populated. As of 2022, the population was estimated to be around 13 million. And it is characterized as one of the poor countries. We have many poor countries, developing countries, but over the years it has made progress, especially with regards to gender equality, specifically women and girls' empowerment. So promoting women and girls, or what we tend to say, gender equality. Gender, it's about both men and women, but because there's women have always lagged behind, so promoting women's empowerment has been seen as a priority in Rwanda. At least over slightly over 2 decades, because most people, when you talk about Rwanda, they what comes to mind mainly is a genocide that we experienced in 1994. So we tend to look at the period after that. So in the last, it's almost actually 3 decades, a lot has been done in terms of gender equality, women and girls empowerment. So this has been possible. It all starts with the political will. When there's political will, there's a lot that can be done. So there's an enabling legal, policy, and institutional framework. As I tried to show here, of course, it starts with the Constitution, which came into place in 2003, but was revised. Then we are signatories to different international commitments. I've listed some of them down here, but they are not exhaustive. I just picked out a few. And then we have laws and policies. Then we have institutions. The laws and policies, the international commitment, the ones listed here, it's because they all prioritize gender equality, empowering groups that are lagging behind, and in this case, it is women and girls. So Rwanda has achieved a lot in this in gender equality. As you can see down there. In 2021, Rwanda was ranked as number 7 in closing the gender gap. In 2022, it was ranked, I think, 6th. So this shows that if the country has gone up to number 7, number 6, that means there's a lot that has been done. And then we have also we have strategies. We have strategies like the Vision 2020, the NSTI, which I'll show you on the next slide. But then most importantly, we have a national gender policy that is continually, even all these other policies, they are continually revised, to give room for more improvement in promoting gender equality. And this gender policy guides all the other policies in terms of mainstreaming gender. So just to show you what is in these policies, starting with the Constitution, I will not read, but you can see, like the Constitution, you see it prioritizes creating an inclusive environment through promoting gender equality and, observing each and everyone's rights. Then education, which is our focus here, education is given priority, and it is seen as a human right. Then we have the other strategies that also mainstream gender in whatever they do. Then we the National Gender Policy, which was revised most recently in 2021. It goes by priorities, like priority 3, it's the continued promotion of gender equity and equality in education. Priority number 4, to leverage on positive culture norms for gender promotion. And the last one, capacity development. Then we have, again, an important policy, girls' education policy. So with all this that you have seen, there's really a lot that is being done in terms of gender equality. But despite all those efforts, we are still seeing gaps in education. In our case, there are gaps in education in different areas. But when you look at higher education and in STEM areas, the gap is even bigger. There's already a gap, but when it comes to STEM in higher education, it is the gap is much bigger. So one can wonder what could be the problem with all the effort over the years, over all these years, but then we are still seeing gaps. So I don't know if I should say it's a consolation. I'm talking about Rwanda here, but this is not only in Rwanda. There are similar challenges across, not only even in Africa, although this shows Africa, but there are gaps, there are challenges in other places. By looking at this picture, you can see that there's an issue because you can always tell who belongs to which, sphere. If it is a domain, a sphere, you can always tell domestic work women. Other tough and more rewarding tasks, males. With this picture, you can always tell that the construction of gender, who belongs where. People, you're not free to do whatever you feel like doing because society has constructed the roles that you belong here and the other one belongs to the other sphere. So our project, the Rwandan side, just like the overall project, we sought to respond to these questions. Where are we? And where are we is what I've been talking about. We are seeing gaps. We are trying all we can, but we are seeing gaps, persistent gaps. And so why is this the case? What does this mean for us? What can we do to make a change? So for Rwanda, and we collected data through quantitatively through surveys. I think my colleague Barbara talked about it a bit, but here we'll be talking about mainly qualitative data. So through qualitative methods, we collected data from STEM students, from STEM areas, first years and final years, and then we had some graduate STEM students who are doing like postgraduate studies. Then we also collected data from those who have graduated and are now employed, but in STEM areas. So we use interviews and then eco-maps where people take us through their journey by chatting down what their experiences and who has been influential in their journey, the gender journey. So why is this the case? Why is this the case? It's because all this is rooted in people's backgrounds, where you come, who you are, where you come from, the struggles you've gone through, the coping strategies, future aspirations. It's so unfortunate that my colleague is not here. Like when I look at coping strategies, all these listed here, she would have contributed a lot because she studied STEM and she still works in the same in the same area in sciences. So probably she could have contributed in terms of telling us about, for example, like the coping strategies, like when you people tend to call it in like a female being in a male's club, like. But unfortunately, she's not here. But these are initial findings. Probably one time we'll get a chance to share with you when she's also here. So our early findings. So why the gender gap? Why the lag? Why are females lagging behind? So we found based on what was coming out in the interviews, we could see it is all about the environment, the community, or the sometimes I like to add community, the culture, and then the personal. So as you can see, in most cases, people talked about a disenabling environment in terms of the education systems, accessing the curricula, the teaching materials, the generally gender blind pedagogies, the lack of role models or mentors, which is really something important if someone is to grow. And then the legislation or poor monitoring. I think you saw that there's an enabling policy environment, but sometimes it can be there, but how these policies are implemented, being there is one thing, but implementation can be something else. And then there is the community where I said sometimes I add culture. So the social culture norms. In the revised national gender policy, they put emphasis on the culture norms, that dictate that you will do this, the other one will do this, you're not allowed to do this. And then, for example, the social norms where in most cases when we're talking to these people, they say sometimes I don't have time to do a lot of academic work because when I get home I have to do domestic work, care work. Some of them have families and it's all upon them to do the domestic work. So the social culture norms, that's because that is what it dictates. Women are the ones who end up doing all this work in addition to whatever else they have to do. It's the same as the second point, the gender labor division, multiple roles, care work. And then there's also the issue or in the community where teenagers drop out of school because of sometimes early pregnancies, early marriages, and then when they drop out, whether they are in high school or primary, that has an impact on what happens at tertiary level. The numbers reduce because someone who was supposed to have continued, even if they were doing sciences, then they drop out because of this. Yeah, so and then personal factors, lack of motivation, self-esteem, e.g. fear, always feeling like an imposter, always feeling like you're a fraud, even when you're able to do something, because people keep saying, she's a woman, she's a girl, she can't be able to do that. They rub it in until a person feels, I don't think I'm able to do this, even when you're able to do this. So like the fear of to handle, like in examples I'll give ahead, fearing to say I've failed because you think people will say she failed because she was a woman, she's a woman, and yet even a male could have failed. So this creates low self-esteem and weak aspirations, because you keep limiting yourself, because people keep limiting you, and then you think that is how it should be. Then there's also issues of poverty, and in some cases harassment. Yeah. So the gendered pedagogies, we talked about what happens in teaching and learning environment. The gender biases of teachers towards learners are often expressed through, it could be language, it could be the tone, interactions, etc. A person can tell on which side you are on, whether you think the person is not capable or they don't fit in. And sometimes this is, when we talk about STEM areas, at least in Rwanda, back home, they are the ones that people study for like 6 years or 7 years, whereas in other domains it could be 4 years or 3 years. So when you're going through all these things that discourage you, only people who are, there's always a need to develop thick skin so that you survive in that place. So if you're not that strong, nobody would want to stay in a place where you feel all the time you have to keep on proving yourself, and yet you're capable. So that's why sometimes people drop out, and those ones who can resist and keep growing this thick skin survive. And yeah, and again, so if the environment was more encouraging, encouraging gender responsive interactions and participation, multiple perspective, well-structured collaborative activities, and valid examples and ground rules, maybe things would be better. So then there are gender dynamics. All this is what we came up with because this is what was coming out when talking about, to these people. Although this is a work in progress, so far this is what was coming out. So the increased expectations for boys and girls to adhere to social constructed and other stereotypical norms that perpetuate gender inequalities. We talked about this labor division, the attitudes, the gender blind, whatever approaches, pedagogies, and then different types of discrimination, discriminatory practices. They could be based on age, gender, economic status, level of education. So you see there are so many things at play. Then the education system, the government scholarships are more attractive than choice of degree. In Rwanda, the government scholarship, you're given government scholarship based on your performance. For example, I might be, I might want to do STEM, but then if I perform poorly during secondary leaving examination, I'll not be given a combination to do STEM. So sometimes people are given a combination that is not necessarily what they wanted to study. They wanted maybe to study STEM, but they end up in a different combination. And from when we were talking to different interviewees, they were telling us in most cases girls fail the STEM. They want to do the STEM subject, but they don't perform well during the secondary school leaving examination. So, in some cases, some end up having diplomas, and with a diploma, it's always not easy to have access to these areas that you want to work in. Talk about STEM maybe. Yeah, so again, there's also the issue of female just preferring to do non-STEM subjects. Yeah. Discouragement, these are stereotypes. I don't have much time, I'll not read them, but these, I think on the other screen they are bigger. So stereotypes that are discouraging, like when a female student is assertive, she's told to stop behaving like a man, and it is very common back there. They even give you particular names of you trying to be what you're not supposed to be. Women are not as good at science as men, but who said that? And when someone keeps saying that, even a young girl coming up will always know these are not meant for me. And women make better midwives than doctors because they are naturally nurturing. Men are better. Yes, such stereotypes. They might just look like simple words, but they can influence what you become and what you choose to do. Mentorship. These are some of the data we got from the EcoMaps, as you can see there. The darker lines show us at least some strong connection between the interviewee and the people who were either discouraging or helpful in their journey. So when there's a positive relationship, for example, if you can, because for me they are so small, I cannot see them. But the mentorship, for example, this person who says in 10 years' time, I'll be having my own family, be a better father and a husband. This is good. Maybe why we talk about mentorship, it's good to think, to have that vision, but you could dream even bigger if you had someone mentoring you, because here we are looking at STEM, someone mentoring you to stay in that area and maybe think bigger and think bigger and maybe say I'll have an engineering company or something like that. I'm running out of time, so so good relationships when family support is weak, new sources of energy are sought. They might be, they may not necessarily be bad, but they may not be so helpful. I think you saw this one in the handout that was given, where there was a bit of discouragement here and encouragement here, where this girl was encouraged by her brother to go for STEM, but the mother wasn't really for it. She didn't think it is a girl's domain. And also negative attitudes. When she went to do some work as an electrical engineer, the people she went to were not impressed because the first thing they saw was a woman, not a capable person. But eventually when she was given a chance to prove herself, they were impressed, they were happy with her. Sorry, these are a few recommendations that were coming out. what should be done to break the glass ceiling, to encourage females instead of discouraging, promote STEM mentorship, start early, because if you start early, a person finds it something normal. If you mentor somebody from an early age, they will know, they'll grow up knowing it is a normal thing for a girl to go for STEM. Promote gender responsive pedagogies, use comprehensive approaches, and lobby for change in legislation and support. Sorry to take you so fast, but I think I'm so talkative. So thank you so much for listening. Yeah.
Thank you, Jen. Really, eye-opening findings. Even in India, if not SEM, we also, come across similar kind of experiences where, like being in a chamber of commerce, many a times we see that even big companies, they come up with conditions that they will recruit only men in their factories, because they say in the factories they don't have infrastructure for women. That is the commonest, we can say quote unquote excuse that we get to hear from them. So if not same, similar kind of experiences here also we face. So now I'll request Dr. Shoikat Moitro, Professor Dr. Monish Kumar Thakur and Professor Shravani Moitro. Dr. Shoikat Moitro and Professor Monish Kumar Moitro, they are from Indian Institute of Management, Calcutta, in Public Policy and Management Group, and Dr. Shravani Moitro from University of Glasgow. I would like to request them to kindly to place their key findings. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shoma Mitro Mukherjee and Bengal Chamber for this opportunity. On behalf of the India team, Indian Institute of Management Calcutta team, I would like to share some of the findings of this ongoing project. And when I say India team, I also want to include two of the professors from Jadavpur University who are here in the audience, Professor Sucharita Chattopadhyay, sorry, because I became Maitro, so I thought that I will take revenge on you. And Professor Kunal Chattopadhyay. So, and also there is a purpose behind including them. So if you find some flaw with the findings, they are equally to be blamed, because we have their inputs as well. And also I would like to thank our research associate Swapnil Dasgupta. Have I got your surname correct? No. Yeah. Sominil Dasgupta. Thank you. Yeah. So as Barbara has already introduced the project, and you can see that our endeavor here has been mostly to map out, in a qualitative sense of the term, what are some of the systemic barriers that explain in a way underrepresentation of women in science, technology, engineering and mathematics. And when we say underrepresentation of women in these subjects, we include both the contexts, higher education as well as employment. So this has been the, so to say, the central research problematic that we have been investigating. And what we are going to share with you is only part of the project that we have covered so far. It's based on, you can see, unfortunately I can't see that because of this podium, but anyway, but I hope you can see. So what we have here, just to give you a sense of, we have interviewed some 150 I would not say respondents, but let's say 150, and you have the details there, and it's all very detailed qualitative interviews. So some of the issues that also we have in a way excavated from the literature, but what we are sharing this morning are the themes that have come out of these 150 qualitative interviews. And since all of us, at least I can see that this audience can see the resonance of some of the findings that we are going to share with you. So the next slide, you will see that, and these are the macro things that we have. As we know, patriarchy is one of the most used word here, and patriarchy, works in multiple ways. And this also in a way informs what we see there. Everyday expectations that we have in terms of gender roles, the way women should behave, the role expectations of women, why women need to get married at a given age, why women should be, try to be mother at a given age, all those things. So the entire ideology of motherhood, the idea of being an ideal wife, Sati Savitri, if you go into the mythological thing. So these normative expectations are at the center of what we have termed here societal pressure. So since I don't want it to be a classroom, so what I will do is that while I am talking, I would also urge you that we have picked up just one quotation to illuminate one of the aspects. So while I am talking, maybe you can see the quotations which are there on the slides. They are we have taken it from the interviews that we had. Of course, we have changed the names and all that, so that we have done. So these are the systemic barriers which are generic in nature, but they do have an impact on the underrepresentation of women in higher education and employment. What we call marriage mainly, and motherhood, the expectation of motherhood. Because what you see, we will come to it later, but these are the macro things which are pan-Indian in nature, pan-Indian in reach. So we can't say that these expectations are more pronounced in Bengal and less in Tamil Nadu. Of course, there are regional variations, but also to tell you something I should have mentioned at the outset, that much of our data come from the eastern part of the country. Calcutta, maybe I can name the places, there is no anonymity, NIT Durgapur, Calcutta different institutions, and also partly from Bhubaneswar, but all said and done from eastern part of the country. Then again, the second aspect that we would like to highlight, and again this keeps recurring in our interaction with the people we have interviewed, is that the role of family and the care networks. In India, family is a much glorified institution, and it has layers and layers of, the historical idealization, that accretions that we have. So in many cases, we came across women who are doing well, and they would try to give the credit to their, in-laws. They had very supportive in-laws. Their spouses were very, understanding, and that's why they could do what they could do. So you can see again the impact of that thing, that even when they have done something, they are very generous, but this generosity is also ideologically marked. This is very generous in giving credit to their network, family networks, that see, I had a child, my mother-in-law took care of the child, that's why I could go to lab, and that's why I could do my postdoc, and etc., etc., etc. So this is again, so another theme that we would highlight. And Shoma, you have to remind me when I exceed my time, okay? Otherwise, once I start talking, I don't know when to stop. Then again, the third thing, and this is, I am reminded of, the Indira Nooyi's autobiography that has hit the market recently. Some of these women icons, of course, she is not a business icon and all. And it's, you see, if you read the popular media, so there is too much of glorification that, look, here is a leader, a business leader who reached the top, but even then she could also bring up their children in such a culturally appropriate manner. She could also look after her husband, she could also look after her family. The same thing. What I am saying that I'm not talking about that this dual, what you say, that this next slide you would see the work-life balance. See, all of us have to strike that work-life balance. But what I want to highlight and I want to urge you to look at, that somehow women have to bear the disproportionate burden of this work-life balance. Just look at it carefully. So somehow the demands that, I'm not saying always explicitly, but even in the implicit way, the demands to have this ideal work-life balance are more, I would say, tilted against women, or more biased against women than men. So, and you can have 100 illustrations. I don't have time to get into that. But I would again urge you that look at the quotations that go with what I am going to say. The next thing is again that these are discipline related issues, and most of you are familiar, and we have, in fact, in the India team, we don't have definitive answers to that why historically some of the academic disciplines have been gendered in a peculiar way, that why you have more women in biology classrooms or chemistry classrooms and less in physics or maths. We know the answer partly. Also, like you will have less women in mining or mechanical engineering and more women in IT and things like that. So some of the explanations we have that all those areas which demand either physically strenuous work or where you have to go on field work or where you have to work throughout the night in your labs and things like that. So, but these are only part explanations, I would say. I on behalf of India team, as of now, I can't tell you that why certain disciplines are seen as feminine disciplines and others are more, masculine in that sense. So this is something that we wanted to highlight. And I hope you don't mind this term, this misogyny. I would say that what is interesting is that for many of us who have this self-image of being liberal, enlightened and all that, even in everyday practices, we also end up saying things vis-a-vis our women colleagues or, in the classroom, which would reveal our deeply entrenched biases. And so some of the things we have, like I would tell you that, even in some of the good institutions of science, technology and all, we have, I would not say some sort of indifference, or we have also, we can't say it publicly, but we do resent the idea of, child care leave or maternity leave. As men, we feel that, these are the extra things that these women have got, they can go on 2 years child leave and 9 months, I don't know, so many days of maternity leave, etc., etc., etc. Now, of course, there are 15 days of paternity leave also to compensate, but these are the things. So, and so these are the issues which take us to the domain of institutional leadership. Those who are academic administrators, those who have a say in employment, how they look at how sensitive they are in terms of gender or in terms of women, empowerment and things like that. So these are some of the, again, the idea of misogyny carried to the domains of placement and things like that. Again, we have called it gender discrimination in jobs, but this is not, again, explicit, because if you look at the policies, even the policies of Department of Science and Technology, so there are enough indications that they are aware of, at least in policy terms, they are aware of this underrepresentation. So they want to encourage women scientists to come back after, let's say, maternity leave or childcare leave and compete with their male peers and all that. But even then, in some of the cases, and we have mentioned that there, we do feel that some of them have this, lingering feeling that simply because they were women, they have been discriminated against simply by virtue of being women. And if discrimination is anchored in the fact of simply someone is a woman, then necessarily we can call it gendered discrimination. This I am not very familiar with, maybe my colleagues can add to this, but sexuality, one's sexual identity in some of the campuses have emerged as new, I would say, axis of discrimination. And after, in some campuses, we have more awareness about the new types of sexual identities, LGBTQ. In some campuses, we have more entrenched gender role expectations and all that. And this is my, I think, last slide, and I want to conclude by saying that. But I hope I have not tried to portray a very gloomy and bleak picture of women in this country or in higher education, or in particular in science, technology, engineering and mathematics. We have met a number of women, and some of them, I would say not all of them, but some of them have had their research degrees from abroad, US mainly, and in some other countries and all. And they have come back to India. They have started working in labs here, in research institutes here and all that. And so we see glimmer of hope, and they are self-aware, they are confident, they are as good as their peers, male peers in different frontier areas of science, technology, engineering and management. So it's not that this discrimination is something that one cannot transgress. So that gives us hope. So that's where I would end. I think, thank you for your patience, and I hope I have not taken much time. Thank you.
Shoykot, would you like to add something now?
I think I'm fine.
Okay, good. Thank you, Professor Manish Kumar Thakur, and I really agree with you that everything is not very gloomy. We have Dr. Shobnam Sengupta here today, who has come back to India and, doing a very good here. So many students, she is teaching, inspiring, definitely. She is here today. Nandinidhi is also here today. So we will, during the discussion, we will listen to them, listen to their experiences. But we always feel that whatever we discuss, we should able to reach to the policy makers. So when we approach the government, Shri Ridesh Mohan sir, told us that the best person to have from the government to, tell to him is Dr. Dipankar Das, Chief Scientific Officer, Department of Science, Technology and Biotechnology. Dr. Das is here today, and we are really happy that he has taken out time for us. Dr. Das, please.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, madam. All 4 madams here, 3 madams from outside India on the dais, and 1 madam and 2 sirs here. And good morning, respected madams and all other sirs and students, my colleagues here. And my special thanks to Madam Soma Mitra Mukherjee from Bengal Chamber of Commerce. From Thursday, I came to know from our Additional Chief Secretary, Mr. Ridesh Mohan, that I will have to come here to share our department, one of the technical departments in the state government of West Bengal, Department of Science, Technology and Biotechnology. What this department is thinking and what it has in its store for the scientists, for the students, research scholars, and also for society in the particular field of science, technology, engineering and mathematics, STEM. Let me first tell us about our department's functioning, Science and Technology Department. Its main functionings revolve around funding, research and development. Then science popularization is another aspect. Intellectual property rights is one of the important field. Remote sensing and geographical information system, and biotechnology, some scholarships and some awards. In all these fields, we can say that the department is not only being led in all these fields by only male scientists, but being led by women scientists as well. Let me first come to the scholarships, which I came to know from Madam Jane from Rwandan experiences. In our department, we found some scholarships in the name of JBNSTS Student Scholarship, in the name of eminent scientist Jagadish Chandra Bose National Science and Talent Search. This is an autonomous body under the Department of Higher Education in West Bengal, but our department supports this scholarship program. Starting from the scholarship program starts in 1960 under Higher Education Department with Senior Talent Search Scholar. In the year 2015, when Government of West Bengal started giving importance to this scholarship program, Junior Talent Scholarship Program came into existence. Senior Talent Search Scholarship Program is for the students of science who pursue their career starting from first year of undergraduate level up to the end of postgraduate level. There are annually 50 scholarships in this category, and starting from the year 2015, junior scholarships came. Number of scholarships is 200 annually, and it has been started by our Honorable Chief Minister, Madam Mamata Banerjee, who we will see that again Chief Minister. A scientific aptitude test based on syllabus and marks of higher secondary, that is class 12, plus 2 level. The candidates are selected and given the scholarships. Having seen the success of these two scholarships, our Honorable Chief Minister has again started in the year 2017. Madam Mamata Banerjee has started Vigyani Kanya Medhavritti program. 50 number of students, only girl students, they get the scholarship annually. It is equivalent to Senior Talent Search scholarships. So starting from the first year of undergraduate level up to the end of postgraduate level. Then again, from the year 2020-21, our Honorable Madam has started another scholarship by dividing this Vigyani Kanya Medhavritti into two programs, Senior Vigyani Kanya Medhavritti and Junior Vigyani Kanya Medhavritti. And I will like to mention that Junior Vigyani Kanya Medhavritti and Junior Talent Search Scholarship programs are for the students of class 11 and 12 who passed the class 10 examination, and on the basis of their marks and other scientific aptitude, they get the scholarships. So this is, and I have discussed with the director of this organization, JBNSTS organization, Madam Dr. Maitri Bhattacharya. She, as you understand clearly, that she is also a woman scientist, and she is a scientist in the field of biotechnology from Calcutta University. She conveyed me that in the 100% scholarships are given only to women in the junior talent, senior Vigyani Kanya Medhavritti and junior Vigyani Kanya Medhavritti, 50 students each annually. And in the category of Senior Talent Search Scholarship, 10% women are getting scholarships. In the category of Junior Talent Scholarships, 20% women are getting scholarships. So this is the statistics of scholarships which our department is funding. Now coming to the other fields, research and development, our department has at present 10 subject areas where we support research and development to various universities, colleges and other academic and research institutes. These fields are agriculture, animal and fishery sciences, biological sciences and biotechnology, earth sciences, engineering and technology, environment, economy and climate change, physical sciences, chemical sciences, then medical sciences including public health, water resources, all these. Another 5 subject areas have been added from this year: material sciences and nanotechnology, artificial intelligence, Ayush, that is Ayurveda, Yoga, Unani, etc. and medicinal plants. These expert committees, almost 30% of the expert committees are being headed by women scientists. In our department, it is a small department in the state, around 25 scientists run the show in our department, and out of these 25, 10 scientists, and I am talking about permanent scientific manpower in our department, 10 scientists, that is about 40% are women scientists, and they are heading very important flagship programs of our department. Patent Information Center and Intellectual Property Rights is a very important wing of our department that is being headed by one women scientist along with the help of almost 7 to 8 women scientists. Almost all the scientists of this wing, Patent Information Center, are women scientists. Now we have remote sensing and GIS, spatial data making process. This wing offers. This wing is also having 12 scientists, and out of these 12 scientists, 8 scientists are women scientists. And this is part of the 25 scientists I have mentioned earlier of the entire gamut of our scientists in our department. Now coming to the biotechnology field, we have one biotechnology park named as Kolkata Biotechnology Park, located in Sector 5 of Salt Lake. Here also around 60% of the workforce working are women scientists. Keeping all these things in mind, this department is now contemplating from this year to have another scheme entirely devoted for women scientists. Since Research and Development Program, it is named as Gobeshona Bangla. It is open for all the scientists of these universities, colleges and academic institutions throughout the country. But we have limited the scope of benefit extended for the people of West Bengal. In line with that, starting from this year 2023-24, we are planning to introduce another scheme which is named as Women Scientist Scheme. It will be entirely the show of women scientists. Only the women faculty of universities, colleges and women scientists of various institutes will be eligible to apply for the program. And as Dr. Monish Thakur was mentioning, and all of us know that compelled to the pressure of the family, the women who generally pursue their career in research, they had to go midway for the family's work by abandoning the work of research. So in this women scientist program, we have included some guidelines and terms and conditions that those women who have left the research job for maximum period of 5 years and go to family under compulsion, they will be we will be trying to rehabilitate them, and they will be having a chance to come to continue the research work. This is a very important program we are planning to introduce from this year. Now these are the main fields. In the field of awards, we have some awards named after Satyendra Nath Bose, eminent scientist. Satyendra Puraskar, Meghnad Puraskar and Gopal Chandra Bhattacharya Smriti Puraskar, all are eminent scientists in the state of West Bengal. And we can see that in the last few decades, this department has started its journey in the year 1988. And these awards are being given from the 90s. Number of women scientists have bagged the awards. After the names of these eminent scientists. We have one parastatal body, West Bengal State Council of Science and Technology. There are also some program, Research Grant Award and Research Fellowship Award. Research Fellowship Award, here also women scientists are given priority and preference. And Research Grant Award, it is for the extension work of pure research. Who pursue the extension work for pure research, they are given priorities. In all the programs of scientific research and science popularization and science awareness program, from the very beginning of the starting of our department, we have made it a point that we shall give special priority to the women scientists. As we are all aware that in the Vedic civilization, Indian women scientists brought fame for the country, and we are also hopeful that in the starting from the state of West Bengal, we will be able to show some path to the rest of the country that women scientists will lead in the science and technology and can make some breakthrough. So, with these few words, I want to conclude here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Dipankar Das. We are almost at the end of the inaugural session. We will just like to request Professor Shravani Moitra to confer the mementos to the honorable guests and dignitaries present on the dais. I would request my colleagues to kindly hand over the mementos. We have some, give it to Shravani. Shravani, please, confer the mementos. These are flavored teas. We have selected tea because, a large number of women, they work in tea gardens. So that is why we have started this giving tea as memento. And so... Hello. Shravani, I have kept your memento with me. At the end, I will hand over to you. So now we'll go to the next session. We have the panelists here today. After this session, we will go to the next session. And this is the, round table, the discussion, panel discussion, which will be moderated by Professor Shravani Moitra. And in this session, in this discussion, rather exchange of ideas and experiences, we would like to hear from the, our very dignitary, dignified panelists, that their experiences in the journey as they are teaching in very prestigious institutions, experience of their students, experience of their teaching, and how the, female students, they are, entering in higher education and especially in employment. And when we say these gender journeys and, gender minority, we not only speak about, women, but also we speak about, LGBTQ community, because we know that they are also facing several challenges. So that aspect would also come to our discussion. So I request the panelists, the panel will be moderated by Professor Dr. Shravani Moitra from University of Glasgow. I request Professor Moitra to kindly come to the dais. We have a very senior professor, a very, very senior professor, and I believe everyone knows her here, who has been teaching for long in one of the prestigious universities of the state, Jadavpur University. Dr. Nandini Mukhopadhyay is here, Professor, Department of Computer Science. He is the HOD also, Department of Computer Science and Engineering of Jadavpur University. Dr. Mukhopadhyay, please come to the dais. We have Dr. Shabnam Sengupta. Dr. Sengupta is the Associate Professor and Head, Department of Information Technology, BP Poddar Institute of Management and Technology, Kolkata. Dr. Sengupta, I would like to request you to kindly come to the dais, please. We have Professor Dr. Maria Fernandez, who is a member of West Bengal Commission for Women. I would like to request Dr. Maria Fernandez to kindly come to the dais, please. We also have Mr. Prithviraj Nath, Director Bridge. Mr. Nath, I believe Mr. Nath is here, and request you to kindly come to the dais. So as I said, as I mentioned, here today in this panel discussion, we would like to listen to hear their experiences, their journeys, and obviously not, I believe, not all the gloomy picture, the brighter side will also come up. And we have students here. We would like to, during the question answer session, I would like to request all the participants here, who are mostly students from various universities, to participate in the question answer session. And after this session, we also have the networking session over lunch. So we will very much like to hear their experiences. So Professor Shravani Moitra, over to you, and we are looking forward to a very lively discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Shoma. We would like to get started, but before we start, I would really like to thank our esteemed panelists for making it today. As I understand, we really had very short time to organize everything, and it's a busy time as well. So thank you, everyone, for joining us this afternoon. So I'll start with our first panelist, Dr. Nandini Mukhopadhyay, who is also from my own alma mater, Jadavpur University. So I'm extremely proud of that as well, to be part of that university. And so is Sucharita Chattopadhyay, my professor and now my colleague in the project, Professor Kunal Chattopadhyay, who was also teaching when I was a student. So of course it feels like coming back home. So Dr. Nandini Mukhopadhyay is Professor, Department of Computer Science and Engineering, Jadavpur University, and I'll start with you, Professor. 10, 15.
A very good morning to all of you. I took admission in engineering in one of the oldest college of India, Engineering College of India, which is now IIST Shibpur. At that time it was Bengal Engineering College, Shibpur, in 1983. So you can imagine, I'm really like a dinosaur in this field. But anyway, so when I got chance in engineering, my father was telling everyone about my success and I will be admitted in engineering. So one of my teacher's wife, she asked, how will you marry your girl if she studies engineering? So that was the question asked at that time, okay, in 1983. And when we started our college, our friends, our classmates started asking, why are you wasting a seat? I got a chance in CS, so why are you wasting a seat? Because you will never do a job. That was the situation for engineering, although at that time many girls started studying engineering, engineering in different colleges, but still the number was very few. And perhaps that perception of the society has changed now. Because now probably Shabnam is here, Shabnam also teaches in another college and others also teach. So I think now we don't think that society perception is still like that how will you marry your girl or you are just wasting a seat. No, the girl students, they don't hear such type of comments at this time. But still, what worries me more, I mean, I am really think about these things that, see, when I teach in my class, till date, my class is of 90 students, but till date, I don't get more than 4 or 5 girl students, female students in my class. This is still there. So, we are expecting, but I mean, almost 40 years passed now after my admission to the college. We are expecting that the number of girl students should increase. In my, when I was in my college, there were 15 students in CS and only 4 girls. Now we have 90 students. In my third year class, there is only 1 girl. Final year class, maybe 4 or 5 girls, and same in other years also. So the percentage is, till date it is not 50%. Like someone was saying that CSIT, probably Professor Thakur was saying that CSIT gets more female students, but no, we don't in our college. And with that, sometimes I think about, I mean, till date, see, there are certain gender stereotyping that prevails in our society as well. Like masculine personality, like males are more competitive, they are daring, unexcitable, dominant. Probably girls are very, girls are not such type of competitive or daring. And male, they stands up under pressure, aggressive, courageous. All these adjectives are used for male. Even when we talk about the masculine cognitive, then also we talk that male are more analytical, mathematical. Girls are still, they are afraid of mathematics. Even in schools, you will find that girls are still afraid of mathematics. I don't know why, what may be the reason, but still such type of perceptions prevail in our society, and I think that affects the girls in the schools also as well. If you go in a co-ed school, you will find that girls are still thinking that they will take up a job which is not engineering or not something challenging in science and technological education. It's not the problem with the girls. I feel that it is the problem of their peers, the teachers, and probably the family. So even sometimes people think that girls are very emotional. It as if we cannot control our emotion. So we may not be very good at reasoning. So this type of gender stereotyping is there. And when we imagine someone who is working, who is doing something or doing a job in engineering or medical, then also we imagine that it's not a it is not a woman but a man. For example, I give an example to you. My daughter is a doctor, and she used to be a junior doctor in Calcutta Medical College. And you know, there are a lot of people come from villages, rural areas, at least the persons from Kolkata must know that. So the rural people, and sometimes the people from middle class also, educated people, when they saw my daughter, they used to ask, can you ask the doctor, Dr. Babu, in Bengali we call it Dr. Babu, can you ask the Dr. Babu to come and see me? I'm feeling pain and so. So my daughter, her role was defined not as a doctor but as a nurse, because she is a woman. Okay, so these are actually personal experiences. So whenever we think about an engineer, a doctor, even today, in fact, many people think that a doctor should be a man, a male, and an engineer who is working in the field or who is doing some job which is not a very, doing something on the computer, not that type of job, then that person should be a male, not a woman. So, such type of stereotyping is still there. Going back to my question, that why till date we have so many just only a few students in our class. I also spent 3 years in UK. I did my PhD from University of Manchester. There also I found, because as a PhD student I had to teach in the laboratories, and I found that there are very few students in the CS class, very few girl students. I don't know why. Even in developed countries also we see almost the similar situation. So I thought one thing, particularly for India, is it a problem with our entrance examination? I'm not sure. I think that, because I'm not a psychologist, some psychologists should go through this. See, gradually we are moving towards examinations which are MCQ based. And persons who are studying with the cognitive, cognitive of any person, they will be able to say whether such type of MCQ based examinations are good for female or whether there is any problem with that. Because I have seen some surveys which find that non-MCQ based examinations, girls do very well when they go for non-MCQ based examinations. So that I think is an issue which someone should handle. And if this is true, then obviously whenever there is any entrance examination for engineering or medicine or anywhere, because nowadays in West Bengal at least, it's not nowadays, last probably 15 years, the students are sitting only, they are selected only based on MCQ based examinations. So if this is true that girls do not perform very well if it is MCQ based examinations, then obviously such type of things should be changed. The question pattern should be changed. So this is one thing, that's my question, and I have just mentioned this for the persons, distinguished persons to take up and think about this one. Environment in the classroom is another issue, and sometimes, fortunately in my university, girls never complained like this. But sometimes students complain, they become, I mean girl students, they become very isolated when they are in their class. During our days, actually, it was like that. We were always separated from our friends, counterparts, because we used to sit on the first bench and our friends used to sit behind us. It was like that only. So we were always separated. But now that situation has changed. At least in my class, I never see that one. But sometimes girl students, they complain that the environment in the classroom is not always welcoming for them. So there are certain barriers. The major problem now, I think, in India at least, employment. That means whenever the girl students, they go for any type of employment. Some of the things Professor Thakur has mentioned, I'm not going to repeat all those things, but I'm just giving some data. In IIT Kharagpur, in my university also, I think same thing, the same percentage we will get. We never checked, but I got this data from IIT Kharagpur. Total faculty members in IIT Kharagpur now, it's 468, and total number of female faculty members, 38, that means only 8.12%. And I'm not talking about humanities, management, etc., but when we come to basic sciences and mathematics, then it is only 11.01% number of female faculties. In engineering technology department, it is much lower than that. Among 313 total faculty members, female faculty members are only 15, which is 4.79%. So you can imagine. So one problem is this. Secondly, so I'm talking about teaching. In the industries, number of female participation will be much lower compared to teaching, because till date our society thinks teaching is a better job for female, not going to the industry and doing something in the field or in the offices. Even when girl students, they go to the offices, they are considered for a very, less important jobs like note takers or organizers of something like that, managers, etc. So I'm giving some more data regarding this. 26% of the professional in the technical segment of the IT industries are women, 26%. Although we have girl students studying IT for a very long time now. Whereas, I said women get less important job. In BPO sector, you will find male-female ratio is 31:69. So female are more given jobs in the BPO sectors, not in the core IT sector, where actually male get more jobs. Core IT sector means that is a more technical job, whereas BPO sector means that is not so much technical job. And among them again, less than 1% females are placed in the top level. Top level then means CEO, etc. We have so many girls sitting at the top position of some of the industries, but that's only less than 1%. And another survey shows, in fact today morning only I got a mail from one of my student. She said, I have been married and therefore I had to leave my country. I came to US, somewhere Washington or something. So now I am thinking to pursue PhD. So will you give me a recommendation? So why am I saying this? See, it is not that she is interested to do PhD, and that is why she is taking up this, she is requesting me to give a recommendation. What she is saying, I got married, so I had to leave my job. I have been shifted to some city in US, and will you give me a recommendation? So that's the situation, and I am really unfortunate, and sometimes I feel very, it is very painful for me one of my very bright student, she did PhD under my guidance, and then she had to, in fact, when I was interviewed, I said this example as well. She had to leave, because of her family pressure, she had to apply to the government for transfer. And she left Jadavpur University and went to some other engineering college in a town, few hundred kilometers from Jadavpur University, from Kolkata. So there she is doing her job, but her research career was destroyed because of this migration. So that's the problem. But she was very good at research, but her research career, compared to my other students, her research career was destroyed because of this. So even though a student or a girl, she gets a very good job, she cannot continue after her marriage, mainly because of her marriage. And then second thing, of childcare. We talked about childcare leave. Many of my colleagues, younger colleagues, they take childcare leave. When? Not when the children are, I am not against childcare leave. I think women, they need childcare leave. But why only women? Why not their husbands? Because childcare leave they take not when the children are only 2 years or 3 years. Even when a student, when a child who grow up and then appears for class 10 examination, my young colleagues, they are taking leave just to sit at home and caring the class 10 student child, not her husband. It's only she does it. So whenever we talk about childcare leave, creche, etc., we always think that only women, only female, they must be doing all these things. Not the husband. It's not the father. It is also father's responsibility to care a child. So there must be some sharing. So even though we have, starting from my time, we have come forward now 40 years, but I don't see much changes when we go for employment. It's still, we are lacking behind. So this is whatever I had to say, and thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nandini Mukhopadhyay. Our next speaker is Dr. Shabnam Sengupta, Associate Professor and Head, Department of Information Technology, BP Poddar Institute of Management and Technology, Kolkata.
Good morning, everyone. I consider myself very much privileged to share my experiences with this august audience, and especially sharing this stage with Professor Nandini Mukherjee, who is a very senior professor, who is a Didi, who has been our school senior as well. And whenever we are discussing about education of girls, we cannot forget a gentleman, and that gentleman is Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. If he was not there, none of us would have been there on the stage today. So Vidyasagar said that the children of a literate mom can never be illiterate. So that is such a fundamental statement that he made that is still so much relevant in today's society, I think. At the very beginning, I will share a few of my experiences. Like in the year 1992, I went to study honors in chemistry in Presidency College, which is considered a prestigious college of this city. At that time, it was a college, now it is an university. And I did not select chemistry out of any compulsion, as mentioned by Professor Thakur, but I loved the subject, that's why I went to study the subject. And there I had very nice experiences. But at the end of our 3 years tenure, there had been a lab examination, and it used to be in a different college or university. So it was, we had to go to another college, which is also a very renowned college. I am not naming the college at this time. But there I had an experience that after all the experiments were over and everything went well, we went for the viva voce, and there had been a panelist of teachers, professors, senior professors who had been asking questions, and there were several questions. One particular a professor was asking me. Whenever I am answering, he is asking another question, and it went on quite long. And at the end, I could not answer a particular question. And then I felt that he was waiting for that moment. He said that, I don't really understand that why do you girls come to study science? It's like a drop of water on the lotus leaf. It just enhances the beauty and adds no value. So that was the comment made by a very senior professor. And which obviously I didn't like, but it was like that at that point of time. Then I went to study chemical engineering at University of Calcutta. And in the classroom, we had a very good social interaction among our friends, and they are my friends for life. And at the class, there were 40 students, but we were 7 girls. So that was the scenario, that was the statistics. As part of the chemical engineering curriculum, we had to go for an industrial training. And I went to Durgapur for a nationalized fertilizer organization for 1.5 months training, industrial training. All the experiences were very nice. All the people over there were very helpful, very motivating. They did not make any comments regarding me being a girl, but it was a huge complex with so many buildings, so many factories, so many different things, but it did not have a single toilet for a girl. Single toilet for a girl person who is working there. And among all those people who were so understanding, so inspiring, so motivating, they did not have this common sense that how am I spending from 9:30 am to 5:30 am without having a toilet in the campus. So when Shoma mentioned about not having the infrastructure, it came to my mind. Like, I don't know what is the scenario at this point of time, but it was like that at that point of time. So it was in the year 1997. So it is more than 20 years. I hope the scenario has changed, and I hope my students do not have to face this kind of thing. And then I went to US, and I shifted to IT. After working there for a couple of years, I came back to India and joined another organization in the IT sector. There I used to work, but what I found that it's from my personal experience, and I do not want to blame anyone. Like, it was my personal decision. Like, all the meetings used to start from 6 p.m. At that point of time, I had a young son. All the meetings, because all the team members had been male, and they used to come to college, come to the office around 11:30, and they did not have any hurry to go back home. So they used to take lots of break, but all the meetings used to start at 6, and I could not carry on for a long time because it was not any compulsion from my family, but I was feeling bad that I am not being able to spend time with my son. And we cannot ignore that aspect also. It's not always an imposition from the society. It is a fact that we have to accept that there are certain things only women can experience. Only women can experience motherhood. Only women can experience this kind of thing, that this is a separation anxiety. This can be an hormonal factor. And this was not an imposition, so it was my decision to leave my job. And I am very happy that I left my job at that point of time and started working for a college which I am doing it for the last 18 years, and I am very happy and proud that in these long 10 years, I have come across so many young minds, and I have been able to be in touch with those fresh bloods. So it was a very wise decision, but I think that that factor is always there and will always be there, because it is very difficult to overcome that factor. After that, I will like to, I have jotted down some data that globally 18% of girls in tertiary education are pursuing STEM studies compared to 35% of boys. And worldwide, only 33% researchers are women. These are UNESCO data. According to World Bank data, there are more Indian female graduates, that is 43% in STEM education, compared to the developed nations like US, UK, France, Germany, etc. While that statistics is very encouraging, I also came across another report by Swedish science counselor Fanny von Helland that even though about 44% of STEM graduates in India are women, which is probably the highest in the world, a mere 14% their share is in STEM jobs at only 14%. So getting STEM education may not necessarily translate into jobs for women. And if we look at another statistics which is very glaring, that Marie Curie won the Nobel Prize in 1901 and 1911. After that, since 2017, only 60 women have won Nobel Prize, whereas the number is 585 for men. So this number is quite glaring. And what can be the reason? Like, if we talk about individual ability, there is no scientific evidence that there is any difference in biological factors that may influence individuals' abilities, skills, and behaviors such as brain structure, function, hormones, genetics, etc. Then comes family pressure, family and peer level. Having a sound family, supportive family, especially during the childhood, is very important. Because there are many families even these days who inject the idea within a girl from the childhood, like that it is okay not to study that hard. It is okay it's okay to be a non-achiever because you are a girl. It's okay because ultimately you will be in a family, you will be having a family, and you will take refuge at the corner of a cozy family. So that is very dangerous, I would say, because at the very beginning, even before this girl has started thinking about her career, this very idea is being seated in her mind. And I believe the role of her mother is very important at this stage, because once again, as Vidyasagar has said, that the daughter of a STEM educated mother will always be encouraged to pursue her career in this STEM, at least not discouraged. Then there comes the peripheral part, like the society. The society is a very strange thing that I found that when my mom used to be anxious, used to be conscious about my studies, like how I am doing, how I am performing, how serious I am regarding studies, a few of my neighbors, most of them were women. I used to ask them, why bother so much? At last she will be getting married. That is the ultimate objective of her life, that she will get married. So that is how a part of the society is, not the entire society is like that. School level. Having good teachers at the school level who can be role models are very important. Okay. And the societal level, even today we come across advertisements of mutual funds which say that save money for your son's education and daughter's marriage. Even today we come across that tagline. Okay, so this is a prolonged consequence of consistent gender stereotypes relating to women's ability to become successful in the field of STEM. So there is even today, even though the scenario is changing day by day, what Nandini had faced, I have faced in slightly more milder form, and today's students are facing in a much lesser form. But still we have a long way to go. And best wishes to all the women and the men to come across that barrier. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shabnam Sengupta. Our next speaker is Dr. Maria Fernandez, who's the member of West Bengal Commission for Women.
A very good afternoon to all our senior professors present here and our international professors who are here and all the friends that are here and the senior professors on the dais and the dignitaries here. Being a professor took a real long milestone to reach. Being in the Women Commission is another milestone, but before that I'd just like to say, before I come to the real part, is that today, as Shoma had asked me, a very good friend of mine, Shoma Mitra Mukherjee, she told me, she said that being in Women's Commission with women's rights, education empowerment, and the status of women. So I don't have a prepared thesis. It's just that 6 years in Women Commission and before that 6 years in Minorities Commission, and I would say what I derived in it. The first thing is I go back to my childhood days. I finished school in 1979 and I am just not going to speak as a professor today. I'm going to speak as a woman, as how I reached where I reached. It was really not difficult. It was really, really difficult in a man's world. In 1976, I was deprived in my own house. It was not my father depriving me or my mother depriving me. It was the Hitler of the house. The Hitler of the house was my grandmother. Because my maternal grandmother, okay, so we would say it as Nana. And I belong to a very, very educated family with all the laureates and everything, but it all turned down to patriarchy. So what happened was, a little bit, when my mother was born, my grandmother cried, and she was very happy that the son was born, okay? It takes an effect on the education system. Then, me being the elder grandchild, a daughter, my brother was born 5 years after me, and my grandmother instilled it in me with stupid things. Today I say it as stupid things and I have a good laughter, but I had a backing of my father. Though that's also in the patriarchy system, but my father was a little different. And many fathers are different. But it's the women that actually puts it on the threshold of enlightening and bringing it up, right up to patriarchy. If we are into the system of an equal ratio and we don't give line into the patriarchy system, it's a wonderful world. I go back where it's a stupid thing like she's a girl, you got to concentrate on the boy because he's going to be the light of the house. He's going to be carrying out your family name, forgetting that he's going to marry a girl who's going to produce that family name. And it went on with stupid things. But then came a time, because we were in Calcutta, we would only go to Goa on holidays. My father had come here before independence, and so it was a different system. So my father had asked my grandmother not to interfere into our lives. But it moved. It moved forward into various stuff. Like, I studied in a convent school, but when I went into class 11, my father put me in a co-ed school. So in a co-ed school also, it was a little different. I don't want to take the names of the schools because I don't want to be biased on it. Because today what I am, I don't give credit to my school. I'm sorry for saying it. I give credit to my surroundings and for my father instilling it in me that you got to fight because you're just equal to the guys. This I am as a living example. And that's the reason today I stand proudly to say this, is that in politics, in education, in every field I have faced discrimination and deprivation of being a woman. It just made me more stronger. It made me more stronger to keep fighting that I was better than them. I just want to say something in a lighter note, is of a late friend of mine, Kamla Basin. Everyone knows her. Okay, so being in Women Commission, we had to go for workshops done by the central government, and so I last met her in 2018. But before I come to that note, I would just like to say a little bit. See, maybe everyone looks at India, the whole world looks at India for various reasons, and every reason comes out into the most glorified press. But patriarchy in a different form, in a more glorified form, not acknowledged as patriarchy, is happening all over the world. Is it that we women were created of a lesser God? I don't think so. I don't want to go back to the creation of mankind, but I'm just going to say two things. Is that every woman here has faced discrimination, deprivation, but we fought the fight to be where we are. Today, we say women are the major stakeholders in the economy of every country. But are we accepted? No. Do we really know our rights? That's where we need to be empowered. We are empowered in education. Look at me here. I'm with a double PhD. Everyone has a joke. I got stuck with MPhil and did PhD later because I was discriminated by my professor. He threw the synopsis of my thesis on my face and he smoked from his pipe. I don't take his name. And he smoked that tobacco pipe of his into my face. The most renowned professor. I changed my university. I got stuck and completed MPhil. After that, I suddenly got a bright start in my head and I said, what am I doing only with an MPhil in, my subject is ancient history. And with a gap of so many years, I did my PhD. And then again I did another PhD, but that's my madness. I did another PhD on a different subject in management. That was, I just did it 2 years back on alternative livelihood for the women in the aquaculture sector of the Sundarbans. That's because I'm in Women's Commission. Because in Women Commission, we go through the same thing what all of us, all the professors here, on the dais and off the dais, all the lady professors we've gone through during our childhood. It's just that milestone. Our mothers were responsible for it. because they were the stakeholders for glorifying patriarchism. Nothing more. Today, as I say, that we are so much empowered in education, but we still give into patriarchy system even now. But we don't use the word patriarchy. But what we say, no, he is the earning bread in the house. He is the father. He is your father. So you must, even if he slaps you, he's got a lot of tension in his mind. You mean to say your mother doesn't have tension in her mind? She's doing more than what your father is doing. He is not multitasking. He goes, he's got his tiffin packed. I'm talking like a typical Indian house. Please, professors and all male members, please excuse me, I'm not a total feminist. But I'm just saying it because many of you who are fathers here, I'm sure you all are supporting your wives and your daughters. But this is what I see of life experience, is what I'm really sharing. Is what happens, he knows, hey, where's my shampoo? Where's my towel? She's running here like a glorified, unpaid maid. At the same time, the child is saying, where's my Maggie? I'm getting late, the school bus has come. So she's running all over the place. And then, you need to give the children the best education, which you never had. So what happens? In the economical stakeholder, the mother and the father both are working. Today, everyone's working. We are empowered. So we see how much of money we bring home, that much better our children will. So then what happens? She's given the tiffin. She's put the coat on for the husband. He can surely put that coat on himself. He can surely put the towel onto the toilet ring, but no, it's all thrown over the place. So she's picking up everything. In the morning, she's got all the children all in order. Then she's putting in their tiffin, pushing them into the bus. She's not had her breakfast. Then she looks at the time she's got to reach work. And then she's carrying her breakfast. Maybe she's eating it in the bus, or maybe she hasn't eaten it, but she brings that pay package home. Now, when she brings that pay package home, she may be a professor, she may be in an IT sector, she may be a scientist, she may be anything. If her pay package is more, she is a victim to domestic violence because of egoism. Why can't we have it on a 50-50 base? It does not happen. It's happening even today. Now I sit in Women Commission and I'm dealing with all kinds of stuff. Discrimination, deprivation, domestic violence, right to education. Now when we come to right to education, in India, the women are the most educated, I'll say qualified, but lack one part. They don't know how to fight for themselves. They don't know how to fight for themselves because they don't know their rights. It's imbibed in you. You get married, you have the whole thing. You don't even have the right to reproduction. I'm going to tell you an example of my own family, a relative of my father. Every day he won in the race course. Every 9 months there was a kid. So I'm just going to tell you, because he was also very well known. And you know what? My aunt, one day, Christmas time, we all go, it's a typical, like a Goan custom, between the 1st and the 7th, you go visiting relatives. And the elder girl is already out of school, okay? And she's telling her mother, can you stop producing, because they're thinking they're my kids and I'm being the nanny. I want to go to college. Okay? Now this is happening everywhere. I'm sure, Madam from Rwanda, you will agree with me on that in the olden times. You're going to agree with me on that. So it is happening everywhere. You mean to say that America, UK and all the places did not have umpteen number of children 40 years back? They sometimes lost count of how many children. They even used to search for a lost child which they already had in the arm. It's a fact. It's a fact. So what happened was all these children decided to rebel. They said either we go to school or we leave the house, because he had 11 children. This uncle of mine. Today, the last child is only 40 years old. And if my uncle was alive, he would have been as old as my father, that's 103 years old. So you can imagine what I'm trying to say. So where did that education go? I'm not talking about qualifications. I'm talking about education. So we say mother's role is very important. But then why is the mother giving into it? Why can't she say, I'm tired? Even the cow stops milking. Why can't she say it? Why is she going through? Why is she coming into a health hazard? Soma, please stop me if I cross my time, okay? So now I'm just coming in for Women Commission. Now why did the National Commission come in? The National Commission came in because the women faced all kinds of hazards. I'm talking about India, dowry, torture, sexual harassment at workplace, sexual harassment at home place, deprivation of right to education, because they felt that the women were born to get married and produce kids. Then came property matters, then came maintenance, and then came molestation, and came so many more stuff. So the National Commission was formed in 1990. It was constituted in 1990, which was to safeguard and protect the rights of the women. And a direction was given to every state in our country that every state should have a state women's commission. So fast forwarding it together, I would say that in West Bengal, the State Women's Commission was constituted in 1992. Now before that, I was in the Minorities Commission in 2011 when our Honorable Chief Minister became the Chief Minister, and this government, I was the first minority woman. I don't mean religious minority, I mean woman, religious Christian in Women's Commission. In Minorities Commission first. I was the vice chairperson there, and there we found that the minorities were below the education level, qualification level. So then a whole lot of schemes were started where education empowerment would be done. Why? Because among certain minorities, when they attained the age of 12, puberty, they were forced to get married. The girls, they didn't have their choice because the parents were below economical level. So they were worried that they would have to pay dowry, and the more the girl got qualified, then the more they had to pay for the dowry. So that was one part of it. So I buckled under the pressure. We had so many schemes in the government like scholarships, stipends, then education loan. Then we had the free education into 3 stages, Kanyashri 1, 2, 3. And then came another thing that if you don't get married, you finish your graduation, then the government will give you for your wedding reception, provided you are a graduate. So that was called Rupashri, and that became so well that suddenly then we found that there were less dropouts in women and there were more dropouts among the men. So when I went to all the districts, the DMs told me that the dropout rates of the women has come to 0 among the minorities, and in the male students, it has gone more. Okay, I finished 6 years of that and I came into Women's Commission. On a lighter note, I say our problems never end. Even today, at this very moment, I know how many women have not able to identify that actually they have been going through domestic violence. They may be a professor, scientist, be me, be a politician, be anything under the sun, maybe even a woman senator also. They are not aware because they're just running into the race, or they say it's a part of it, just let's school it. No, when you have your rights, you need to know your rights. That's the first thing you need to know. If you don't know your rights and you don't know how to use your rights, you are a loser. This is what I say. You have to open up, you have to say, you have to speak. In our country, we have the rights, we have commissions, and we have a lot of sympathizers that come and fight for the women. There are a lot of NGOs working for it. And on that same note, I'd like to say another thing. There's domestic violence of every kind. It happens when, because you're a daughter, you're being slapped by your brothers for no reason. That's domestic violence. It is the husband beating the wife for stupid reason because he's had a bad time outside. It's a mother-in-law making a comparison with her daughter who's somebody else's daughter-in-law also. And there's all kinds of violence in different forms. It doesn't have to be physical. It can also be verbal. We need education for that. We are doing awareness for that, because that is the most, even the highest society in every country that has the most, maybe the millionaires and billionaires. It is happening in their houses too, but it's covered up well with really good curtains. And where do we see? We see it where it's on the lower economical or the middle economical line. We go to the next part. The next part I'm talking about property matters. Property matters according to every religion is that women have equal rights. The wife, the mother has equal rights to her husband's property, father's property, or whatever be. I'm just going to tell you 3 heart-wrenching examples because I'm not going to give you a theory. Sialdah station, railway station, a retired professor, I will not take her name, of Rabindra Bharati University. She had come, she was not married, she was looking after her brother's children. She retired as a professor. After many years, in 2016, I found her on the Sialdah station. So I asked have I crossed the line? Okay. Yeah. So I asked her, I'm just changing her name. Her name is, I call her Bela Di. So I found her sitting there totally disoriented. The SP of Railways told me that she is a retired professor. You're a professor, you will understand. And she told me this thing. She said, I have forgotten where my village is. I have forgotten where my house is. I said, then what are these papers? So she said, now these papers, I don't know what they are. So then after that, we did some counseling with her, and then we found she was looking after her nephew because her nephew, her brother, Bela Di's brother had died, and so she was looking after the son of her brother. And he brought her to see Durga Puja over here, and he told her, he said, Auntie, I am just going to get you a bottle of mineral water. Okay? He had used her, when she was sleeping, he had used her thumbprint, and he had got all her property in Shanti Niketan area, Bolpur area in her name. He went to bring water and he never came back. She got totally disoriented. I'm fighting her case, and I'll just tell you one thing. Today she is in a government old age home. Okay? A second example I want to give you is of a mother, yesterday, found on the road, belonging to another state. They brought her, saying for Ganga Sagar. They left her on the road, the son and the daughter-in-law, belonging to Jharkhand, saying that they were going to get her something to eat and haven't come back till now. What was the whole thing? Property. So all down the line, I'm just saying it in short. I have so much to say. I'll need an hour. So 20 minutes, I just say is what I want to say is in short, in one word, is that all of us women, I have a message. The message is that if you give in to patriarchy system, whatever way you call it, then you are the loser. And on a laugh note, I just had said about Kamala Basin. Kamala Basin had said, what is the difference between male and female? What is the difference between men and women? So we all in Women's Commission from different states, from Bihar and UP, you know what they said? They said, yeah, the man is the provider, he's the father, he's the husband, he's the brother, he's this, and the wife, and the woman is a wife, a daughter, blah, blah, blah. She said, you're all wrong. You know what's the difference? She said, women have breast, they have womb, they have vagina, and the men have penis, scrotum. These two only help in the reproduction system. Other than that, no difference. Because women's brains are more smarter than the men's brains, because they can do multitasking. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Maria Fernandez. Our last esteemed speaker is Mr. Prithviraj Nath, who's director of Bridge, and Mr. Nath will be speaking on rights to education and work of LGBTQ plus individuals. Thank you. Yes.
At the presentation. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much to Bengal Chamber and Glasgow University and all the organizers for having me on this table. Very, very happy to have a space and very happy to see that the lines have been slightly blurred beyond binaries when you start talking about gender, and I think it's very, very, very important. I'm afraid I'm not going to talk about STEM education like some of my hallowed predecessors talked about, but I am going to talk about our recent experience of working on inclusion in education and workspaces of LGBTQ people in the state of West Bengal. So we did a recent study to understand where we were. Of course, even 5 years ago it wouldn't have been possible because it was illegal. Being an LGBTQ individual in the entire country was illegal. The perception was, of course, if you look at the specific legalities of it, it was not. But it was illegal till 2018, where the Supreme Court overturned the judgment. So evidence on where the LGBTQ stand in terms of inclusion was very, very little of that is available. So this was our attempt to start with that. And I'll just take you through a few brief insights from the survey that did in the state of West Bengal. So this one, right? Okay. So just a quick look at what we did. We did in 20 districts of West Bengal out of 23. There were survey facilitators because we had to use trust-based networks. More than 350 respondents within the LGBTQ community, and more than 75 from educators and employers. The income group was not fairly evenly distributed. More of them were from the 5 to 10,000 a month income group, and there were some from 10 to 25. Others, a few were more than 50,000, but a lot of them were also students. Again, the distribution of education completed by the respondents, and I'm talking about the LGBTQ plus respondents here. It was mostly graduates. We did also have postgraduates, but some of them were also just higher secondary and secondary. Just to give you a snapshot. And most of them, the respondents, were from urban spaces. Now, when I say urban spaces, I am talking about municipal areas, not necessarily big cities, because a lot of our respondents did come from smaller tier 2 cities. So here is what I will start with. What we asked them were, are you open about your gender and sexuality expression? Almost 200 I think 247 in total say this, they were open to an extent. 200 said that yes, they are open. 47 say that partially open. You know, I'm open to my sister, my close friend, or you know, just one guy knows. You know, something like that. And the rest, around 105, said they were not open. And when we asked them, why are you not open? Most people say that they were afraid of being discriminated against. As you can see, out of the 105, 51 say the reason that they did not open up because they were afraid that they will be discriminated against. So this was the obvious next question. So we asked the people that if you did open up even to one person, two person, or to everybody around you, did you face discrimination? So out of the 247, more than 70% say that yes, they have faced discrimination, and the others around 40, I think 46 people say, which is around 18% say they did not face any discrimination. We also asked them, when did you face the most amount of discrimination? And you can see on the slide, most people said it was during secondary school, when they were studying from standard 6 to 10, but there were fairly a large amount of respondents who also said that they faced it in postgraduate and graduate studies as well, and even in workspaces. So it is not specifically only limited to school level, is what we saw. Now we also asked them, if you faced this discrimination, did it affect your mental health? More than 50% said yes. Yes, it did. Some of them are not sure, and some of them didn't answer the question. Some, of course, said they didn't face any mental health issues. I'm not going to go into the details because it's a fairly detailed survey, but I just give you an example of the kind of discrimination that we talked about here. It was verbal abuse, it was physical abuse, it was silent treatment, it was not being treated at par with the rest of the students, various kinds, and all kinds of responses we got. And I'm not going to show them here because I don't think we have the time. So we also asked them, overall, because of your gender sexuality, did you face any discrimination or difficulty in completing your education? 130 of them, which is around 37 of percentage of the total respondents, said that yes, they did. And some of them said that no, they didn't. And others say that they saw others face. Like, you know, they did see others face it, and that's one of the reasons they didn't come out. They didn't talk about their gender sexuality expression. Just to give you an example, the kind of, we asked them the kind of difficulties they face, the kind of discrimination they face, and we asked those people if they said they faced bullying or saw others face bullying. So we asked them, what was your reaction? What did you do? What was the emotional reaction? And these are some of the examples of what people say. 46 say that they felt hopeless and wanted to give up education. The 38 people say they feel alienated and they feared going to the institute, and 31 say they felt suicidal. Now, thankfully, all of these respondents were there when did the survey. So there were people who had dropped out. People have seen people drop out of education, other friends, other LGBTQ people. So these were those who are still there. Okay. Moving on to the workplace, we also looked at kind of discrimination that people faced in the workplace. It included various kinds, like at the interview level, at the selection level, during interviews, even after interviews. So some of them I remember because we did this long telephonic conversations with them at times. So some of them said, I wasn't even allowed to enter the venue because the way I was dressed. And obviously I had the qualifications because I had applied, they'd seen my CV, and then only they called me. I wasn't allowed to enter the venue. Forget about, you know, sitting for the interview. Some others say that when I went in, they just asked me weird questions, you know, questions about how I'm dressed, why I'm this way, why I'm moving that way, or why I'm speaking this way, etc. and no questions about my qualifications, my experience, and this happened to people who are experienced, you know, even had previous job experience. To the extent that people were told that we cannot hire you because you are a certain way. On their faces, you know, in the worst scenario. So, I'm just trying to add here that I'm so glad that you did have this space for the gender and sexual minorities here, because women, the kind of difficulties that women have been facing and still continue to face is very much, or maybe at times worse, about the sexual minorities that they face, or gender sexual minorities that they face. Did it affect your mental health? A lot of them said yes. And strangely here, with this question about workplace, a lot of them didn't respond to it. And we tried to probe. In many ways, they were not even aware what mental health would constitute, what affecting mental health would constitute. When we probed, so didn't it bother you? Didn't it make you feel alienated? Didn't you make you feel discriminated? They said yes. But when you asked them, you wouldn't consider that as affecting your mental health? They said, maybe. So, you know, I just wanted to point out here, that is also one of the big questions here, and I think also reflected in what some of my predecessors talked about. Do we recognize what is to be recognized? Do we know what is to be called out? Do we know, I think very importantly, Dr. Fernandez, you talked about legal rights. You also asked them about legal rights. More than 70% were not aware. So, do we really know what rights we have? Do we really know where we need to question, what we need to question, where we need to speak out? I don't think we have that. So, we also asked if you continued to face discrimination after you got hired. So, the first hurdle was to enter the space for a place where they're having the interviews. Go through the interviews, have the right questions asked to you, and then do you continue with the job? How do you continue? Can you continue? A lot of them said yes. They continued to face the discrimination. In fact, I think more than 30% of these people say that when they actually landed a job, they couldn't continue because it was too much otherization, too much of laughing behind the back, or too much of alienation happening. So we asked them, what was your reaction? What did you do? So this is what you see on the screen right now is they wanted to leave the job. 42 said they wanted to leave the job. 14 say that they feared going to the workspace. Okay. Some of them also feared for their physical safety because they had received threats, because they received catcalling and name calling and all of that, and 10 say they felt suicidal. I will end with this last two slides and a few questions maybe for all of you to consider. When we also asked the respondents, what would you think would be an important top 5 priority action areas for us to be able to bring down the discrimination, to have more inclusion rather. So most of them say that educators' orientation is the most important thing for them. And then next came the orientation of fellow students or peers. We also had an important, interesting suggestion that there should be higher representation in popular culture. And by popular culture, we would mean films, literature, even case studies, and everywhere. People should see that there are people like us. This is what they said. And when, particularly in India, I'm sure that you would agree, for those who are from India and even from other developed nations, when we started out representing people from the gender sexuality minority in our popular culture, in films and novels, in many cases, it was always as a negative character in certain ways, or someone to be laughed at. A lot of our very popular, Mumbai film industry products would have, for a long time in fact, would have LGBTQ characters or obviously effeminate men, and they would definitely be the laughing stock, the main protagonist, the male main protagonist would be teased that they would be married off to that person. Those kinds of, stereotypes. So I remember that the predecessors talked about stereotypes. So those are there as well. So that was highlighted as one of the important things that needs to be done, other than, of course, strong zero-tolerance policies in the institutions. And more inclusion of gender sexuality in curriculum. A lot of the people say that if we starting with the binaries, if from very early on we do not hear about the binaries, even as we heard about women, and these are the roles of the women, these are the role of the men, and all that, those binaries, if we start with examples of a spectrum, people can be anywhere, right? They can choose to be anything. I remember, I think Dr. Sengupta, she said that, yes, I chose family, but that was a conscious choice. Even if some of our choices can be linked to certain stereotypes, but do I have the choice to choose that, or am I being forced to choose that, is an important thing. So, so having those choices is very, very important. So for that to happen, people need to know. So if we can include gender sexuality early on in curriculum, it would be useful. This is about the workspace. Similar trends. Most people felt that the employer needed orientation. There should be more regular, dialogues happening in workspaces. There should be zero tolerance policy, like we have, at least on paper, and Dr. Fernandez can tell us more. We have sexual harassment committees in workspaces. They took a lot of time, of course. At least we have that in paper. Maybe many of the times people who sit on that committee are offenders themselves at times, but it still exists on paper right now. Organizations are mandated to do that, and there's some movement on that front. Can we have similar things for the LGBTQ, for the gender and sexual minority, as a policy? People also talked about the importance of having state level and central level government policies come up. While there are questions, there are difficulties about markers, and we can talk about that. And my friend and collaborator Pawan is here, and we were talking about that. See, if we have some reservations or some priority-based employments being given out to people, gender, sexual, minority, what would be the markers? The policies would need markers, right? A certificate or some kind of a proof. How does that work? So those are open questions, but important, very important to have the right policies in place. So what I would like to end with is a quote from one of our respondents from one of the districts which is known to be socio-economically slightly backward in West Bengal, called Murshidabad. And I've kept it as exactly how this person had given us, because we had these forms where they could give us. And as you could see, so there are some spelling challenges, but I would read that out to you. This is in Bengali, and this is from a 21-year-old gay identified individual from Murshidabad. So what he said was this: "Amader টেক্সটগুলো মন দিয়ে পড়বেন, এইগুলোই আপনি দিনের আলোর থেকে রাতের অন্ধকার বেশি বুঝতে পারবেন। মেন্টাল হেলথ সবার খুব খারাপ থাকে, সবার দুই পৃথিবীতে একসাথে চলতে হয়, সমানভাবে খারাপ লাগলেও ভেবে নিয়েছি চলতে হবে বহুদূর, ভয় পেও না, আগিয়ে যাও, হয়তো তুমি জয় পাবে." So just to translate this for those who are not conversant with Bengali, so we had this option in the questionnaire where we asked for any feedback, any questions, any observations that they might have for the respondents. And this particular person from Murshidabad is a young guy, 21-year-old, a gay person. He said, "Please read our responses carefully. You will see there's more darkness in it rather than light." We all suffer from mental health crisis a lot of the time, and we always have to straddle two worlds. One world of make-believe and one world where we are ourselves. It feels bad, it feels unreal, it feels unjustified, unjust, but we have to go. We have to go through this, and we believe, or I believe, we have to do this for a long time from now. But he ends, and that is what I love, and this is what I wanted to use this quote, is he ends on a note of hope. That, but let's not be afraid. Maybe ahead of us, we will win. So I'll end on that note, and will welcome any questions and reactions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Prithviraj Nath, and that was really insightful. And thank you again for the panelists to share their personal experiences, their experiences from the workplace, and their own lives, and people and students that they have interacted with. I would now like to open up the floor for questions, comments. This is more, it will be easier if we do it more in a round table format, maybe, where please feel free to share your comments. If you have questions for the panelists, feel free to ask them. We also have Barbara, Jane, Bonnie, Saikat, Manish, and of course, a lot of insights can be shared by our research assistants, Shaumunil, because especially on the experiences of queer students, you have done some of those interviews, so I'm sure you'll be able to share some insights from there as well. So please feel free to ask questions or share your comments. Shoikat?
Firstly,
it's on.
Yeah. Firstly, thank you so much for this extremely insightful and really lively conversation. Just a couple of very quick thoughts. I'm sure there will be many other questions and things to share. Just listening to Professor Mukhopadhyay, if I might call you Nandini, this is something that I just heard about what you mentioned about this doctor, right? So one of our cousin sister is a very senior pulmonologist in a very well-known hospital, private hospital in northern part of India. And she was complaining that whenever she goes to the patient, I mean, she is doing the daily rounds, the usual question is always, when is the doctor coming? Because you are either, at best, you are the nutritionist or the anesthetist, not really the doctor as such. So this seems to continue, the stereotypes. One other thing, I mean, there are many other things that we have to probably talk about, particularly what you have suggested, Mr. Nath, about gender sensitization. I mean, I teach in an institution where thankfully we have been able to have some forms of, for instance, in IIM Calcutta, women are about almost 30% or slightly more. And which has been the result of a very, several years, a very conscious way in which you have tried to bring in women into management, much higher than most other institutions of this category in other parts of India. But one of the problems that we are still facing is this lack of sensitization. It's even the kind of jokes people make. I mean, they think these are the jokes, right? Including faculty members. I have to be very honest about this, very sadly. But students definitely, staff members, and often what happens with sensitization, gender sensitization, and gender in a much more broad category, not just this male and female, right? So in that sense, what happens is that gender sensitization also becomes like a, something that you tick. Okay, half a day of gender sensitization, then you are done. So what you actually learn is it's not what you learn in, let's say, real course on financial technology. There you are paying attention. Gender sensitization, okay, I'll just sit back and, look at my phone and just somehow while away 2-3 hours. So we have to actually pedagogically even think of ways in which we can make a difference. And that is not very easy. Given the challenges. Unfortunately, I mean, we all like to end on a positive note. I don't see much of a positive note here. I am very, very, unfortunately, from, the experiences of teaching and others, same kind of stereotypes, same problems, they keep coming back. Even this attrition of women. Management, mid-level management, many of the women, fantastic degrees and everything, they come up, in their maybe 30s, exactly the same kind of problem. There is pressure from the family, or I wouldn't use the word pressure necessarily, that in the sense somebody is forcing them, but they also feel like that I should be doing something, and then the HR department says, okay, let's have the male, team leader who is more, capable of taking the organization forward. And it is very well documented in management literature. So not very different in that sense from other STEM fields. So this is a problem. But what I think that we should be thinking about are the ways in which, if we really want to end on a, let's say, a positive note, the ways in which we can also at the policy level think of sensitization in a much more effective manner, not just something that you have to go through the motion. That's one thing, just to kind of start the ball rolling. And the other thing, again, talking about, the fantastic work done by our research assistant, Shomoni, it's still a work in process. Factors such as caste or regionality within STEM fields coming from other parts, and class definitely. Urban, those who can have a certain command over English, compared to, again, I see it in same thing in the classroom. Typically, the women who is very silent, often coming from engineering colleges, who is more or less already used to, you don't speak in class, right? So you have to really go out, there's class participation, please say something. But also there are problems about English. Then I realize maybe she is not very comfortable with English, and she feels that she is going to make, somehow make, others would make fun of her. So there are certain other issues also, and very complex issues, but definitely I really like this idea of sensitization in, at least in the academic spaces, and everybody, not just the students, but particularly the teachers, I feel, in my opinion. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you, Shoikat.
I just wanted to respond to one point Shoikat mentioned. Shoikat, right? Yeah. So regarding increase in women students in IIM, I questioned about the entrance test in engineering. You see, for engineering, I am again talking about engineering because I am a teacher in engineering discipline mostly, only actually. So we always focus on MCQ based test. On the other hand, IIMs, they take other things into consideration while admitting, not just admission test. There are other things like previous results, etc. So we could not bring such type of changes in engineering education, or I'm sure that for science education like physics, chemistry, same thing may happen. So while admitting the students, like in the institutions like Jadavpur or etc., we should think about changing the entrance or admission criteria. Because if we only focus on admission tests, probably at certain point of time, girls will always be at the back end. Boy students will come forward. Maybe they will beat for certain reasons. So we need, at least at this moment, so we need to think about other things. That is what I thought, that we need to bring this change at the policy level. So just a suggestion.
May I add? Yeah. So, yeah, thank you so much. I think I was also listening to that argument about MCQs and looking at various kinds of expertise, that way. I was just wondering, because you're talking about STEM, technology, it's so important. Technology has, completely revolutionized our lives, but because of its application, right? So when we look at technology, we should not just look at technology and the education and the employment in these sectors as what is being done, but it's also about how it is being done and why it is being done. So coming from there, the suggestion that you had, Dr. Mukhopadhyay, that we should change the way that we are, inducting people. We should look at why and how they want to use technology. How are they going to apply the knowledge? And probably there we will also look at some of the other faculties rather than just the theoretical knowledge of certain things. And I think that is very, very important. We should start recognizing that those qualities are very important in future generations of people who come and do new things in our society.
Thank you. Anybody else want? Yes.
Excuse me, can I speak?
Hello. So good evening, good afternoon to all the panelists. I am Radrita from B.B. Poddar Institute of Management and Technology. So my question is to Nandini ma'am is, ma'am, you talked about MCQ based entrance, right? So if I didn't consider STEM, if I consider UPSC, so if we take the graph of UPSC students, so even there, if I consider the percentage, the students basically from masculine gender cleared that entrance more rather than the women's. So do you feel that MCQ is the reason behind that? Because the pattern is not completely MCQ based over there in UPSC also. I personally feel that from the family onwards, basically we are extremely pressurized to boards examination rather than the competitive examination from family background, and that is the main reason why females are not qualifying or cleared the most competitive examination right now. What's your opinion on this?
As I said, I am not an expert in this field, so I don't have any idea. It's only I added this particular point because while browsing through the internet few years back, I found such type of surveys on the internet. Okay, so it may be different. It's not. I won't be able to say that, but you are right that there is another reason. Obviously, the family pressure. So girls mostly concentrate on board exam. That may happen, but still, what I tried to mention that, or just to bring into focus that for admission, whenever we are considering admission, there are other things which need to be considered. Like in the developed countries, the personality of a student. Maybe in our country we have such a huge population. I am not sure whether it is possible. But for example, in our arts faculty, Kunalda and Shucharita, they are here, they will be able to tell this. In our arts faculty, whenever we admit students in some of the disciplines like English or comparative literature, they design very nice question papers, very nicely designed question papers. Many of you may know. So, intelligent question papers, not just MCQ sort of things. So, what I felt, girl students will be able to compete if we consider other factors as well. So that is what I tried to focus on.
Thank you. Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. I convey my respect to honorary guests and dignitaries. First of all, I am research scholar at McMaster University. My name is Sumanta Bhattacharya. Today, we are talking about gender-based issues. So first, I think it is root cause from the education, because our education system based in education, employment, earning, siblings, and banking. This malpractice need to end. Because whenever we judge people for earning, like we are talking about people of many countries, many developed countries are also entrapped. Because men and women not need to be identified such in like gender based. We need gender biased economy, gender biased education. And this practice should need to initiate by social engineering with inner engineering. And in Western countries, I must include one thing, the feminism is a very good word. But it starts from Western countries are promoting it for the Industrial Revolution started. Because in the Islamic region, when Islam is brought from Quran is very important features. He described that Islamic people need not to go for alcoholism. Why it needed? Because Islam is brought in above 40 degrees Celsius. Why we need alcohol? But Western countries, the Western industry based on cosmetic product, alcohol product, they are promoting feminism for ridiculously invaded their malpractice in Islamic regions. But I think it needs to stop. We need social engineering. Why the religious? If we go for Christian religion promote Jesus Christ, we offer wine. Because Christian people belong from the winter season areas. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. The lady in yellow.
Good afternoon, everybody. So, one of the issues that was talked about was harassment. And although in the Indian context we have ICCs, and we are supposed to have ICCs which are supposed to be functional, but there have been a lot of reported cases where people, the members of the ICC itself were discriminatory towards the survivors of harassment, be it a woman, be it a member of the LGBTQIA+ community. So my question is, how do we address that? Because I think Dr. Maria Fernandez, she told us that we women must be aware about our rights, about our legal rights, and what we could do to address discrimination at workplaces, at educational institutions, etc. And even after a journey where we have to sensitize ourselves, make ourselves aware, and then address the ICC, if you're faced with such treatment, then I think it's a huge problem that we're facing in the educational sector and workplaces. So what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I'll just answer it in short. Actually, ICC is the Internal Compliance Committee, which after Vishaka guidelines, because of Vishaka case, this committee was formed. In this committee, I just say that every organization, every institution, every workplace, even government, public, private, all have to have, it's mandatory to have the Internal Compliance Committee. But the Internal Compliance Committee comprises of 3 main members, okay? One is the chairperson who has a higher position in that company, has to be a woman, okay? Then one, they have to take from the male counterpart who is also working in that organization of a proper level. One has to be from outside meaning an NGO or an activist, and the last one has to be from Women Commission. Most of the places, it's a sad thing to say, most of the places they do not inform the Women Commission. Yes. Okay? Now I am into the ICC of a number of places, and I'll tell you what happens in case in the local LCC, that's the Local Complaints Committee, if the petitioner is not happy, say supposing a person A was had filed in the LCC and was not happy with what the chairperson had done and what the employer had done, is supposed to send that whole copy given to the Women's Commission of whichever state. Say supposing West Bengal, it has to come to my commission. We call the parties, we call the employer, and we see that, and then we take it over, and then we see that the woman, whether it is justified. You got to see, because sometimes, let me say that like what I said a little earlier, I'm not totally a feminist. What I meant was that sometimes because of promotion, I'm talking on the negative, I'm talking about the devil's advocate. On the negative side, what is happening, a woman's staff, she doesn't get a promotion, the employer is a male, so she knows that the best thing I can do is sexual harassment at workplace to go against the employer or her colleague. So, you know, that's the reason why in Women Commission we need to see it. But in case it needs legal assistance, we give free legal aid to the woman who is the survivor.
Also, ma'am, there's a 90-day trial period.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you that. Before that, when you do in the LCC, you don't have a 90 days trial. You have a 30 days trial. When it comes to ICC, you have a 90 days trial.
But and during that time, what happens is the woman who still has to share space at the workplace is mostly socially ostracized.
Correct.
Rather than, in any other way. So these are certain like structural problems which,
Yeah, I'll just give you in one line a short example so you'll understand. I was attending a meeting in the railways, and it was a problem like what you were saying. So what happened is the railways, they took too long. They took more than 90 days. So we had given them an order asking them that they had to bring it to terms. And that's the time the lady, the victim, let's say it as a victim, she had already applied to us saying that she was not happy with the report, and she felt that she was being ostracized also. So what happened is that we directed that the transfers should be done. Okay, because there were many people, like, from the place of stay where the person stays. Like we say opposite party, okay? We don't call it accused. So the opposite party, we found out from people that are not known, not in the railway department, then the other staff, because everybody has to vow to secrecy. You cannot discuss whenever we do that one-to-one. And then we decided to ask the GM to change their office hours.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there was a hand there. Yeah. The person before you. Yeah. And then I'll come to you. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm Pawan, Prithvi's colleague in Bridges. I had a couple of thoughts around the topic of gender sensitization that we've been talking about. I think it is definitely a very difficult subject to deal with. Very easy to say that we should have it, but it doesn't really happen often. One thing that a lot of us in queer activism are also coming around to is that, in fact, in women's rights movements as well, that when we talk about gendered journeys, whose genders are we talking about? It should not actually only be a one-way traffic where, say, the employees in an organization, the male employees in an organization are just recipients of information about the genders of the so-called gender and sexual minorities or women. They also need to reflect and introspect on their own gender identities, on their own gender formation, because that is a process, that's a construct which happens from childhood. So if that process is not included in the gender sensitization, I don't think we are going anywhere. And it'll be like, as the gentleman in the front row said, that it's a tick to be, a item to be ticked off, that I have been through half an hour or a day of gender sensitization, which is not the case at all. So I had a suggestion for Prithvi that since we were talking about a spectrum of genders and sexualities in the sample of our studies, if you can give an idea about the profile of the genders and sexualities of the respondents. Because there's also an important overlap when it comes to gender and sexual minorities. Gender and sexual minorities does not mean only transgender people. That is another convenient equation that needs to be demolished. And also gender and sexual minorities include women. And so there's an overlap with women in general, and often that particular aspect doesn't get talked about. Thank you.
Thank you, Pawan. Very interesting discussions indeed. Yes, sensitization, it's a big word. And as Dr. Moitra was also talking about being tick boxes, what our experience has taught us is, and as Pawan rightly mentioned, is sensitization may start with a policy, a structure in place, but it doesn't really happen, and it doesn't really materialize into sensitization until people really understand. And at times, and a lot of the times these days, what happens is the conversations that we have are very frightening. And I think, Pawan, maybe that's one of the things that you are talking about. A certain section of the population are just takers, and they are perceiving this sensitization as a threat. And a lot of the times, the question, we cannot ask questions even, because that is apparently triggering. So I'm just again, to actually reflect what Dr. Fernandez was saying, being the devil's advocate. When we are talking about sensitization, there needs to be a certain amount or a kind of political incorrectness to it. There are certain questions that need to be asked, difficult, uncomfortable questions that could be about where do I stand in terms of gender sexuality spectrum, like my friend and colleague Pawan said. When men are listening to, and I've heard this from many men, and that's why I'm saying, a gender sensitization workshop or a class or a session, they're just going to come in and take our jobs and we cannot say anything. They're going to come and tell us that you cannot do this and we cannot say anything. So a lot of, and I'm not saying that that's always legitimate. Absolutely not. But that is also legitimate, right? So so when we talk, and as Pawan again pointed out, the gender sexual minority includes everyone, and patriarchy is something which affects each one of us. And till the point we keep ticking the boxes, as Professor Moitro said, we will only create more fractions, more disgruntled people, and more misunderstanding in people, and more fights. I'm not saying the legal battles are not important. I'm not saying people are not perpetrators. I'm not saying people are not doing it with intentions. But at the same time, there are many others who are just following stereotypes because they were given to understand this is what needs to be done. Jokes. Most of the jokes are so misogynist, so problematic, but we recognize that. Did you recognize this is a misogynist joke? Because it's, become so normalized. So the sensitization that we are talking about has to be much more nuanced, and at least some elements of it has to be politically incorrect. We have to ask and let people ask difficult, uncomfortable, even at times problematic questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just go there and then come back to you.
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nakhat Agarwal from, I'm an alumni from the University of Glasgow. What I heard, I came a bit late, I'm really sorry for that, but of what I heard, the catcalling in the professional sphere or the problems that we face, my idea was like, I'm from a co-ed school from a very beginning. So when we grew up, so there were boys and girls together, so we learned to coexist. When I went to college, so when I was in Xavier's, I was amongst all boys. And for them, it was the boys who were from a typically boys' school, say Don Bosco or La Martinia. For them, it was very difficult to adjust with girls, maybe. Or maybe they are coming from a boys' school. They have probably grown up with a couple of gay guys in their school. So it is normal for them, but for others, it is not. So is it not true that we should have more co-ed schools so we can learn to coexist from the very childhood, other than being surprised when we grow up and we go to a professional sphere? So because we have a very less co-ed schools in Calcutta or otherwise in our country, which maybe is the reason why when we grow up and we go into a professional sphere, we are very new to the other genders. And that is why we are surprised and we are not comfortable with them. And that is the reason why all of this happens, this gender inequality, and they're not mixing together, maybe.
Yeah, maybe a pertinent point, but there could be several counter questions, and not to shut you down, of course. But that's why we talked about having, one of the recommendations that we have from our study is to have the entire spectrum of gender sexuality early on. People need to understand there are no binaries, and even between men and women, there are stereotypes about roles and roles. Even if you, for example, if we are being educated in not a co-ed school, yes, we might not so frequently come across fellow students, but it's not that we are not doing that in other walks of life. It probably, and of course the others can add to this, what I personally feel, it is probably in our education, which starts right at home and definitely continues in the schools, from our teachers, from our elders, from our peers, that what do we consider as respectable behavior? What do we consider as wrong? What do we consider as name calling or not? Who do I think, as Pawan was mentioning, when we say gender sexual minority, it's not trans women or trans man that we are meaning only. It is minority being who is not the majority and who is facing difficulties because of the majority, which includes women in many cases and all cases. So there are women, there are bisexuals, there are trans men and women, there are gay, there are lesbians, and there are many like gender fluid, non-binaries, many as are there people. So do we really start with that? We never start with that. When we then grow up, and to take on from your question, because if you have always been in a male environment in your schools, mostly all your even teachers are male, you get okay with certain kind of a culture where it's okay to behave a certain way. Now that probably has very little to do with whether you're a man or a woman, more with patriarchy. And patriarchy, you know, actually affects all of us. And when we talk about feminism, it is not about just women, it is against patriarchy. So, yeah.
I just wanted to add one thing. It's not about having more number of co-ed schools or having less. It's all about what the society does and what your neighborhood does and what is your surroundings. You need the awareness there. If the awareness is there, then you don't have a problem whether it's a gay or lesbian or a LGBTQ or a woman or anything. It's all at equal par. But the society doesn't want to change because of that word patriarchy. It's imbibed.
Then, yeah.
I would like to add something.
Oh, Shabnam. Yeah, yes. Oh, please.
I'd like to add something like that in India we have the concepts of only boys school, only girls school and co-ed school. But I have been to US, I am not very sure about the other countries. In US, most of the schools are co-ed schools. Okay. Even then, when I was going through the statistics, I found that in US also, only 34% of the women go for the STEM higher studies. And there, the application procedure is not like as in India, like it's not only one admission test, as Nandini has mentioned. There are several factors like admission tests like GRE or SAT are there, as well as there is an essay or statement of purpose, recommendation letters, extracurricular activities, so on and so forth. Still, considering everything, when we see that kind of a statistics, it means, it shows us that mindset plays a very huge role. And social engineering, as the gentleman in the middle row has mentioned, probably is the only way to go about it, that the mindset has to change. Only then we can come out of this patriarchy.
Thank you very much for such nuanced panel discussions. My comment, or rather my observation, will go to the panelists over there and also to Jane and Barbara. We are talking about gendered journeys, but the lens which I am missing is about disabled women and disabled girl students. When we are talking about higher studies and especially STEM education and employment, I would like to know from both of you, while you were doing the study or survey, in your respondents, did you have any disabled girl students, or did it just skip out of your concern or something like that? And also to Professor Mukhopadhyay and Professor Sengupta, how do you see the absence of disabled girl students, especially from the higher education system? Because we know that there can be scholarships or there can be support system for them, but which we don't really see in the reality. So, and we talk about social barriers, we talk about how to take away and make the education system and employment system more disabled friendly. And these are marginalization within the gender thing, because disabled girls are mostly invisible. So I'd like to know your comments and observations. Thank you.
No, it's true that when you were saying this, I just, I can tell you that during my 30 years of teaching life, I never found a girl student with physical, who is physically challenged in my class. And probably not in engineering faculty. There may be some in our humanities faculty, but still, if we consider physically challenged students, then again proportion of male is higher. And in engineering faculty, as much as I remember, probably it is nil. Even even we have quota for physically challenged students, and even in this year, one student who is autistic took admission in our MCA program. I found another student serious problem, I mean can't walk, but he took admission in our engineering program, but not a girl student. Again, as Shabnam also said, there must be some social problem. Probably the girl students with physical disability are not allowed to go maybe out of their home or out of a certain location where she is staying, and take up a challenge like studying in a STEM field, engineering or whatever. So that's a problem, and probably we can, even with we never had any reservation for female students. That's not there, and I'm not asking for that also. But probably there must be some system to encourage even the physically challenged girl students to come up and take up a course or being admitted to a course like engineering, etc. This is my observation, and we need to think about this. Shabnam.
Yes, same for me, that I have also never come across a student, a girl student who is physically challenged. But yes, of course, like quota I don't think is a solution for any problem, but some incentive, some kind of motivation should be there for the family members who are taking her probably as a burden, so that she gets the opportunity. Opportunity is everyone's right. So that thing should be there. So that is an appeal to the policy makers to look into this matter.
Yes, hello, and just say thank you so much for your question. I think it's really, really important. One of the things we wanted to do with the project is definitely to look at the intersection of gender with other aspects of identity and positioning. Disability is definitely one of the things that we want to look at. We did collect information we included in the survey and also in the qualitative study. We definitely asked the question about disability as well as other aspects of identity. I know that in the quantitative data, there are a certain proportion of participants who did say that they have disabilities, but it's a very small number, unfortunately, not a huge amount to be able to do any statistically significant analysis, which I think really says something in itself. For the qualitative data, I'll pass on to the Rwandan and the Indian teams to talk about more and whether that came up as something in your data. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Barbara, and thank you for the question. Actually, during the qualitative data, really that did not really come out that much. I think the identities, mainly it came out during the quantitative, but qualitatively, yes, they might have been there, but the focus, the questions we were asking really were not going in that direction. But the samples we had, everyone was included. The sample, we did not say maybe if you have a disability, no, or so they could have been there, but we did not really ask questions about anything about disability. It was all about STEM, gendered experiences for students with or without disability. I guess because it wasn't our focus, our main focus, that did not really come out Although if it had come out, it would have been something good, but really, I don't think it was the focus. Thank you.
I want to include in the one point that I am a Sorendranath Dotto. I am United Nations volunteer for working for human rights. I want to include one point that the student, though in spite of their writing test, they scored a large number, but on the time of interview, personal interview, name has been distracted from the, or strike down from the list, so that they cannot reach the classroom. That's why the teachers cannot find the physically challenged person in their classroom. Because they think that there is engineering is a so much laborious work you will need it to go through. Yes. Okay. But there has been a force to take that which is not so much physical activity needed. Included in that one.
Even in mechanical engineering or civil engineering, we don't have such type of policies. The students with physical disability, they can take admission. There are special quota for the students with physical disability. It was there, as I said, in maybe in 80s, this type of, in Jadavpur University, we had medical examinations. So, but now those things have been, it's not there.
Thank you so much. I know that there are still some hands up, but just wanted to say that some of our panelists need to leave, and we also have a small ceremony, but we will be talking to you over lunch. So please, we don't go. We will continue the conversation over lunch. But I just would like to formally wrap up the event here by thanking everyone, especially Shoma and Bengal Chamber for organizing the event, but also to our esteemed panelists for being here and sharing your insights with us, and to all our audiences, and Barbara Reed, our project lead, Jane, our partner from Rwanda, Bonnie Slade, also from University of Glasgow, Manish Thakur, Saikat Maitra from IIM Calcutta, all of you for being here and for making the event so successful. Thank you so much to all the audiences as well for joining us.
And Shabunidhi, please confer the mementos to our very esteemed panelists.
And Shoma Lancher.
Yeah, and as Shabunidhi said, please join us in lunch, and we will continue the discussion, the networking during the lunch. So please don't leave. Please join lunch with us. And thank you so much for being here.